Good afternoon, everyone. I'm joined today by our school board chair, Nora Rupert, our vice chair, Heather Brinkworth, school board member, Dr. Razan Osgood, school board member, Lori Levinson, and our school board member, Robin Bartleman. All right, so again, thank you for coming in this afternoon. Wanted to just provide a media update on today's events across the district with our students. Today, across the district and the nation, students have clearly made their voices heard. They are working to transform their anger, their grief, their concerns over the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School tragedy into something positive, into a wave of activism and calling for change in this nation. As superintendent of this great school district, and as a father, 3 daughters, and a member of this community, I am extremely proud of the efforts of our young people. Their efforts so far has brought about change here in the state of Florida that several weeks ago we never would have thought possible. We saw that materialize in Senate Bill 726, which put some restrictions on access to guns, provided resources for improving school safety and security, and greater investment in mental health services across our school districts in the state. So we have continued to support our students and their rights to peacefully and lawfully protest. Our district has supported our students' rights to express themselves and carry peaceful protests across the district. We provided a letter of guidance to our parents as well as to our schools as to what type of actions that they should take during the walkout. Again, we encourage our students to stay in school, and we encourage them to contain their protests, if possible, to our school campuses, but we're also realistic and recognize from what we were able to learn from social media, what was being organized. So we did have student groups and situations where students left campus. We worked to make sure that they were safe, that they were accompanied by administrators and staff throughout the district. And I'm happy to report to tell you that everything was done peacefully, no incidents that I'm aware of. I want to commend our law enforcement agencies and municipalities for their continued support in helping us to ensure that our students were safe throughout today's activities. Today's activities marked another major milestone, I believe, for our students in this community as they move forward in the healing process and, again, turning their grief into action. So, again, we appreciate everyone's help, everyone's support in this. We had, I think, about the majority of high schools had some walkout activities. Others had activities at the schools, and we saw different things across the district. You know, I would say that today was a great teaching and learning opportunity for our students. We always stress that our kids need to develop critical thinking skills, that they need to be able to look at information, look at issues, and be able to think about them and understand the pros and cons, that they ought to be able to communicate their opinions on things. So this was a day for them to connect what they're learning into real relevance in real life. So, you know, they read a lot about history. Today, our students are making history, and we're proud of them, and we want to continue to support them. With that said, I'd like to have our school board chair, Ms. Nora Rupert, also share a few words on behalf of our school board, and then we'll entertain questions.
Thank you, Mr. Runcie. I'm incredibly proud today. What I was listening to across the whole United States was not only were they out marching for their lives, and they were taking their time out there, but they were constantly saying this is only a step in the process and what's going to culminate in voting. And that's really where we're going to see action. So I was incredibly proud of everyone. Thank you for your continued support and the outreach to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas victims, families, employees, and the community. We're grateful for the tremendous, overwhelming response to the Broward Education Foundation GoFundMe, which to date has raised over $4 million to provide relief and financial support to the victims and the families of this horrific tragedy. To contribute to the Foundation's GoFundMe account, visit gofundme.com/Stoneman Douglas Victims Fund. For those wishing to offer specific items and support services to Douglas High School, visit browardschools.com/support. As we continue this long journey of the emotional recovery process, we remain focused on providing support and services to our students, schools, and communities that were affected by this tragedy. In partnership with local and community agencies, we've established the Broward County Resiliency Center to address immediate needs and provide support and resources. The center has expanded its services to provide free support groups, including a student support group for high school students, a parent support group, a school staff support group, and a knitting support group. To reserve space for support groups, call 754-321-1590. The Broward County Resiliency Center is located at the City of Parkland Amphitheater in the Pine Trails Park in Parkland. I want to thank you all for your support, and I also want to thank the superintendent and his staff, as well as my colleagues who have been out in the community and caring for the public, as well as our employees and our families, and I'm incredibly proud to serve with them. Thank you.
All right, we'll open it up for questions. Yes. Yeah, so we have, and this is through the Florida Association of District School Superintendents, we issued a letter today calling for the governor to ask for a special session. I actually spoke with the governor today about this. Essentially what we have is a situation where the governor put forth a proposal that we thought was a good proposal for public education in the state of Florida. He had recommended a $152 increase, I believe, in the base student allocation. At the end of the legislative session, the budget that came out of the legislature and is now on the governor's desk dropped that down to 47 cents. A drop from $152 to 47 cents is unacceptable. That base student allocation is what is used to pay teacher salary increases. It's used to expand educational programs. It's used to cover inflationary costs of utilities and health care. So as a result of that reduction and a further erosion of what we call the district cost differential, which essentially says that it's a lot more expensive to live and do business in South Florida than it is in the Panhandle, so there's a differential that has been put in place. That was further eroded. The combination of the reduction in the base student allocation and the reduction in the district cost differential has resulted in Broward County Public Schools being in a situation where we start out with a negative $16.75 in our base student allocation compared to last year. Again, negative $16.75 is where we are. That, to me, is a huge concern because several weeks ago, the governor, as well as members of the legislature, indicated that we have a record budget in the state this year. There's more money that has been collected from the various revenue sources, and those dollars could be used to put forth a school safety plan, which is there's a significant investment in that. I believe it's over $400 million. It appears where we are today that those dollars have come at the expense of our core business in this state, which is teaching and learning, our classrooms, our ability to invest, again, in our teachers, educational programs at work. There's no money available for that. We believe that's a false choice that we should not have to make. The state should do both. They should provide adequate resources for school safety, mental health services, school support, school resource officers, And at the same time, there should be adequate funding for our schools. And we're not asking for much. Florida is already 44th in the nation at $7,300 per student. We're substantially below the national average, which is over $11,000. So the governor, we're asking him to do the right thing, send it back to the legislature in a special session so they can provide funding to adequate funding to education. Also, there's some huge disparities. I could probably talk for another half hour on this, but you know, the base student allocation in some districts have gone up to as much as $182 in Marion County, for example. Again, Broward County is $52. And it's kind of flipped, right? Marion County is a place where the cost of living is substantially lower than Broward, but our base student allocation is like, what, maybe a third of where they're at. So there's some things that have to be fixed. This is a budget that should not pass. This is not the time to do it. We can do much better than this for our students and our communities in the state of Florida.
Superintendent, what would you say to the critics that say that you are somehow assisting these students in leaving class and the learning environment, and that this is somehow not an organic way of activism?
I can't get more organic than this. I will tell you that the district has played no role in organizing any activities for our students. I mean, I think those are the same critics that say our students are actors, you know, or they're paid actors, or they're not even students. No, this is a movement that's being organized by students who are concerned about what they see as a generation that has failed to put things in place to make sure that they're safe, that they have an opportunity to have a great future. I applaud them for it. Certainly don't encourage any student to be out of school. Being in school is the right place for you to be. But, you know, you do have moments like this where they want to exercise their rights. And I think as long as we can connect it to the learning process, it can be a positive day that we're having. So, again, hats off to our young people. You know, they have their big march coming up on the 24th in Washington. I understand there's somewhere between 600 and 700 marches that are going to be held throughout the United States and across the world, over 1,000. The young people have organized that by themselves. It's actually an incredible thing to see, and we need to be thankful and be hopeful about the future of this country based on what we see coming out of our students.
Have you ever seen, in your years as an educator, a movement like this that's sadly had to start here in your district, and what's the challenges for you?
Well, I haven't seen a movement like this, period. Some of the estimates I've heard, you know, Washington may see well over 3 million young people and others showing up. This is a huge moment in the history of the United States and the world. I think it can be a critical turning point in the politics of this country. A couple things I would say that I've noticed, which is really encouraging, and that is how our students here, in particular in Parkland, have connected with students in places like Chicago, which have had their own version of gun violence of a different nature, but the same kind of impacts, trauma, and outcome on kids. Different socioeconomic status, different demographics. They now see how their faiths are connected and some of the common things that they have. And if we're starting to connect kids from Parkland to Chicago with all the socioeconomic and demographic differences that typically are in between those two communities, and they're connecting now, I mean, I think that's a great sign for the future of this country, and it's a great sign for the world. What I would say is that the tragedy that we faced in Broward County is a difficult one. It's going to take a long time for us to work through this. We're asking for support from the federal government. We're pursuing a grant from that now, as well as additional help from the state, because it's going to take a lot of resources. It expands beyond Parkland. our whole entire district and communities affected. It's teachers, it's students, it's families, and that's what our focus is. That's what the focus of this board is, to make sure that we're going to be able to move this district forward and deal with that at the same time that we've got to make sure our kids are getting the highest quality education services possible. So we can't forget about the strategies and initiatives that we have in place around early literacy, around redefining our experiences for our kids in middle school, making sure that kids are graduating, that they're not only college and career ready, but they're life ready when they leave our system. So we've got to make sure we cover all of that.
Let your stance be known as far as arming teachers in the classroom. Do you have a reaction over the recent story of a teacher that was teaching gun safety in California and the weapon went off and hurt 3 children?
I think there was also another case, I believe it was in Georgia, where something happened as well. So those are only cases, I think, that support the argument that adding and introducing more guns into a school environment is not the answer to this issue. I absolutely agree with the fact that we should look at having more trained law enforcement personnel on our campuses, and I think we're going to start to see some progress with 7026 and the resources that are coming out of that. But arming teachers is something that I don't believe is a good idea for a whole host of factors. I remain steadfast on that. I think the vast majority of teachers would agree with that as well, and also parents that I would talk to. And finally, I've had these conversations with students. They feel the same way. So I think we got to focus on the real root causes of these issues. One, it's access to weapons of war that have no place in the hands of civilians. It's making sure that we have a better level of investment in mental health services within our schools as well as the community, and that there's a broad continuum of services. It's also working to ensure that there's better coordination of information and action across multiple entities, school districts, the juvenile justice system, law enforcement, mental health providers. There's got to be better coordination so we work smarter as a system to be able to address individuals that have issues or are considered dangerous in our community, to make sure that they don't have weapons, and we're able to provide the services that they need. Anything else? One last question. Yes. Debate. No, right. Journals. Yeah. Yeah. So this should be an example for the entire country of what our public education systems produce. You know, we always get this conversation about choice, right? And choice defined between a traditional school and a charter school. Well, I tell you that choice is about looking at the many plethora of opportunities that are provided and can be provided within a public school system, as we have here in Broward. So students are able to take things like debate, arts, they can get involved in journalism, they can take computer science. We, again, are preparing our kids to have life skills so that they're able to be successful in whatever endeavor they want to pursue in this world. And it's not just about Parkland and Stoneman Douglas. We strive really hard for equity across Broward County. So what you see there exists in every other high school in Broward County. And this board makes that a guiding principle of how we function. So we don't put a debate program in Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and without doing it everywhere else. We have debate in every single high school in Broward County, every middle school. This year we started to introduce it in elementary schools. It's the largest debate program in the world with over 12,000 students, and many of the students that you see involved and leaders in this have been involved in debate. They know these issues. They've researched them. They've discussed them. They've had debates around them. And I would say they're probably in a better position and more knowledgeable than some of the lawmakers that are dealing with this. So we're proud of our students here all across Broward. And we think if this nation continues to make the right kind of investments in public education, a lot of the issues we have will be solved. Just think about it. We're doing this with $7,300 per student. You go to some other states, they're doing 2 and 3 times what we have in terms of their investments. So I think we're providing a great return on investment in public education in America, and our students are demonstrating that. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you all.